What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Last Principles. I'm your host, MA. Today, we have a special guest in the house tonight. We have Trisha Lee. How are you this evening?
I'm good, actually.
Good.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I have not seen you it's been some years, I think, right?
Oh gosh, far too long. The last time we saw each other was just like an after church thing where you were stopping by. I think because you were doing like a dance class thingy with a few people.
Oh my goodness. So
it's been a minute.
So we both were still in the ICOC last time we saw each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. So yeah, because it was before you met your fabulous wife, and it was when Sandy was like a little bit. She was a baby. So It's been a minute.
Oh wow. Yeah. So because at first I was going to say it has to be at least before COVID, but I undershot it a long time ago.
Well,
long time.
It's because we're older, so time flies by very fast now.
Indeed it does. So everybody at home, what we're doing tonight is we're actually doing a double feature. So first episode, it's going to be all about Trisha, why she came, why she stayed, why she left. And then we're going to get into a subject that is unfortunately both near and dear to both our hearts, which is purity culture. So y'all make sure y'all tune in next week for that one. I mean, we're going to film it all tonight. I'm not shy about letting y'all in on the secrets. You know, there's so many and so many blank audio spaces and so many things that we cut out of these. So I have no problem telling y'all that I'm filming this all in one night and it's gonna get split up. So there that is.
There we go.
Yeah.
Amen.
So Trisha, what I'd like to start with is I've noticed that this isn't for everybody, but for a lot of people, there's always something that happens in our lives, whether it's our background, certain events that make us either more susceptible to organizations like the ICOC and other cults / high control groups, whichever one you want to call them, or something that happened to us that ends up making that group attractive to us, or both. So with that said, what was going on in your life prior to you joining the ICOC?
So I am a sort of kingdom kid. And I say sort of because I actually started coming when I was 11, 12.
Oh, wow.
I know, I was a little. And so I started coming because my aunt is a disciple. She's actually still a disciple up in the Greater Philadelphia church.
Okay.
And she had been reaching out to my dad for years, many years. And so I, went with my dad to church one day, and I just happened to like the kids class, or the preteen class that I was in. And I just asked my dad if I could keep going. Like, it was just, I loved the idea of church at the time. Although my, I was raised with my dad's side of the family, they're Hindu. But my dad still was very, we read our Bible a few times, a week. We had our Bible stories. We had some kind of a spiritual upbringing-esque thing that my dad did. So I did I at a young age always believed in God, believed in spirituality. So I just liked the idea of a place to go every Sunday, and I was like, oh, this is great. But then also on the flip side, I had a really horrible home life. So it was like an escape.
Yeah.
My dad's great. Don't get me wrong. I love my dad. He is amazing. But having an abusive older brother and not really their younger brother, and then a mom to no fault of her own had what's referred to now as dissociative identity disorder.
Gotcha.
Back in the day, we called it multiple personality. And so let's just say most of her personalities really hated me. So not the safest environment for me. So it was just kind of also nice to have what seems like a peaceful, non-abusive place to go to.
Gotcha.
My cousins were there, and I didn't really spend too much time with them growing up. So it just seemed like a nice other fun way to get to know my family, get to know the family members. So I started going on Sundays, and then by the time I was in think like 7th, 8th grade. My dad worked it out with my aunt that I would stay with her on the weekends. So I could go to, because, by like 8th grade, they kind of move you up to like the teen ministry.
Right.
Because it's like, you're almost there. Why not? You're like 12, 13. So we were in the teen ministry. And so, there's always like the events on Friday. And then normally there's like your teen devo on Friday. And then you have like usually like hangout or something like that on Saturday, and then church on Sunday. And so my dad thought it'd just be easier for me to just stay with them on the weekends. So I started doing that. And then my one weekend while I was there, my aunt came up to me and was like, have you thought about studying the Bible yet? And I'm like, 13? I think I was 13 at the time. Well, this was like the late 90s.
Yeah.
Which, everyone was, it sounds like a bad thing. Everyone was doing it. But that was very, very common back then, was if you were like 12, 13, you were studying the Bible and you were getting baptized.
This was going to happen.
This was...
There. Right.
I know one guy who waited till he was like a junior in high school, and that was like the talk for years is, he still studied the Bible. He still hasn't got baptized yet. I know, talk about the weirdest peer pressure ever. Let's just get you under.
You would think that'd be good peer pressure, right? You would think.
You would think.
We know better now.
Let's be real. Who's ready to make any kind of a life-altering decision at 13? Like, I'm 35 and I still don't feel like I'm ready to make any life-altering decisions. I was like,
adulting is overrated.
It is. It's the worst. But I definitely wasn't ready then. So, my older cousin, I had 3 cousins that I lived with. I was with, that she had. So I have a cousin who's 2 years older than me, one that's like 6 months younger, and then another cousin's like 12 years younger. So my older cousin, like, she was already a disciple. My cousin, who's like my best friend now, but she was 6 months younger. She was studying the Bible. So it was like, well, baptized, studying, plus, my aunt was leading the children's ministry and my uncle was leading the song ministry. And they were one of the like it couples.
One of the power couples in the church, huh?
Exactly. So that's like the, best friends with like the church leaders and stuff. And so it's like that added pressure of like, which I honestly think this is something that is most people either realize or is discussed, is depending on who your parents are, or in my case, your aunt and uncle are, there's like that added pressure of spirituality, or this concept of what your spirituality needs to be and look like.
Exactly.
And so it was definitely there. So I'm like, I was still scared of my aunt, honestly, back then. And so I was
scared of her?
Okay, sure. I mean, it's the personality I have now of like this very like, there's a presence and it is there, and she had it. She definitely has it. And so I was very, I wasn't as confident. I had a lot of self-esteem issues. I was very insecure about myself. And so, she told me to do something. I was going to do it. Like, okay, yes, ma'am. So I studied the Bible, and we're studying, and you're doing all the studies. You've got your the Word, we've got church history, we've got discipleship. We get to the sin study, and even at 15, those things are rough. Man,
I can imagine.
Matter if you're a kid, they go through it, and you just feel awkward. I learned some things that I wish I didn't know. That I'm like, can we adjust this for like kids, like for teenagers, please? Like, because you go through like certain scriptures and you're just like, what's this? Bad. And so, so we go through all the studies, then we get to baptism, and I wasn't 100% sure, but like, again, that's the thing to do. And, I let the woman who was studying with me at the time, like, I wasn't 100% sure, like, if I was ready yet. She felt like I was. And my aunt was like, oh yeah, you're ready. She's been talking to my discipler about my studies and everything. And which now when you think about it, you're like, why is someone just like, you kind of share some very personal things in your studies. It's almost like therapy sessions where you're like, can't there be some weird confidentiality thing? There wasn't. Oh,
definitely no HIPAA agreements, right?
Man, that's probably why. That's why it's like, oh, we do discipleship, not therapy, because he can go over HIPAA. But that gets a lot of us, let's be real.
Yeah.
And so, so she was like, so baptism. And I was like, yeah, I mean, we went through all the studies, we were at baptism. That's kind of when you make your decision, you know, are you ready to make Jesus Lord? And I was like, you know, I decided, I was like, all right, you know, my cousin had been getting closer and talking about it, you know, everyone else around me was kind of doing it. And I was like, yeah, you should really do it. And I was like, okay, you know, so
everybody's doing it.
Everybody's doing it, you know, gosh, drugs are easier. It's not that bad of a weaning process. And so I feel like everyone who's left is like laughing ironically right now. Like, oh my God, it's true. And so I was like, okay, so I made the decision. I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And it ended up being a double baptism day. It was actually originally July 31st, 2000. You know, you never forget. You never forget your first baptism. And so I got baptized with this other guy in my teen ministry, and we had our double baptism. We were at the church leader's house. We got baptized in the pool. It was a whole thing, and you know, and so it seemed like a pretty good idea. I wasn't really against it, or anything like that, but I wasn't really sure. And I mean, especially at that age, like, you don't really know what everything's going to entail.
Right. And
so, you know, then shortly after I got baptized, my dad let me know one weekend, hey, by the way, you're actually also now going to live with your aunt full time. I'm like, I said,
what?
You mean, yeah. So I'm like, okay, so when is this happening?
You weren't going to prep me for this? You weren't going to give me any kind of warning?
Oh, no. It was like, oh, no, I need you to pack your stuff right now. Like, you're actually moving today to go to her house. So it was like a Saturday. And I'm like,
so were you essentially kicked out, or was this? I
was basically kicked out. And like, as I got older and, you know, I understood from my dad's perspective, he was doing it as a way to kind of like keep me safe. Like, I was living in Philly. It wasn't like the best part.
Yeah.
You know, my older brother was in and out, and we had, although he was going to church too and was studying the Bible at the time and had gotten baptized, he still was kind of a jerk. Be nice.
Yeah.
This is going on YouTube. I have to be polite. And so, you know, he wasn't the greatest human. Well, I can't, you know.
I say, you know, I wondered if I wanted to actually have any censors on here, but I was like, you know what? This is about people telling their story. This is about people speaking their truth, letting it all out. So don't be afraid to slip up.
Okay, cool.
If
he
it
was
happens.
A dick, and he still is to this day. It's been over 20 years, nothing's changed.
Wow.
If he sees this, he's going to be like, I'm not like that.
Not even the waters of baptism.
Not even the waters of baptism were able to save him. His power was tested that day. It did not work. So yeah, you know, and I mean, I get it, you know. I was in 7th grade. My dad's had a friend move in, and she was schizophrenic. So it was really just a very unhealthy environment for me.
Yeah.
So from my dad's perspective, I definitely understood why he did it. And we've had many talks as an adult for me about why and, you know, kind of what I went through. And we actually literally had a talk on the way here, you know, coming back home today about that, you know, about sharing things he didn't really know about. So, amen, things are great. I love my dad. He's awesome. Still a daddy's girl. You know,
into that.
Many years later. Yeah. So something for you to look forward to. We don't grow out of it. Never.
I don't see it happening at all.
No, it's great. I love it.
Yeah.
But so I ended up moving in with my aunt and uncle and their kids kind of full time. I ended up sharing a room with my cousin, which was really terrible for many years because we both had many issues that we just, you know, unfortunately put on each other instead of realizing they were separate issues that we had to deal with. And, you know, we did our own thing. And once we were both in college, you know? It's, you know, things are crazy. You know, I'm angry at the world because I can't live with my dad and I don't really get to see him as much. And because, you know, one thing I actually shared with him was, I was very rebellious in high school. Let's just say that. Despite being a disciple, I was very rebellious. We had very strict rules that my aunt had, especially for me. And so like I couldn't hang out with non-disciple friends outside of school. Like inside, there's no control. You can't control me in my school, but outside you can. So like I couldn't hang out with my friends, and I didn't really have any friends that were disciples. Honestly, I could never connect with them.
That doesn't happen anywhere else, right?
Never.
And
I mean, and it was very cliquish. Like, and there happened to be a lot of disciples in that particular school, and there was literally like a disciple table where if you sat anywhere else, like your parents found out about it that same day.
Oh.
And so I got talked to a lot too. Like, well, why were you hanging out with this group here? Why were you they're my friends, and I want to. But you're supposed to spend time with these people because that's what helps your relationship with God. And even at a young age, you kind of get indoctrinated and taught that, it's the do not be yoked with non-believers.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about how that gets misused another day. But that was a big thing, was you had to, if you had class with disciples, then that needed to be your main friendship. If you were in school, lunch period, you hung out with disciples. Like, it was very unheard of, especially towards me, of hanging out with anyone who was not a disciple. And so like I was not really allowed to do anything unless a disciple was a part of it, including after school activities.
Wow.
So I kind of had to like pull teeth. I was part of a multicultural society. I loopholed it a little bit. Like my older cousin was in it for like a day. I was like, but see, she's in it. We didn't have to talk about when she finally even left high school that I was still a part of that group. Or I would loophole it with the like the school musicals. Like, well, I'm just a part of the costume section, so I don't interact with that many people. So it's tough, so there were always these little loopholes I was trying to create because I wasn't allowed to hang out with non-disciples outside of school. But then I would want to go to my dad's house on the weekends, but I couldn't do that most of the time either because, well, what's our church calendar looking like? You've got your teen devos on Friday.
You got to be at everything.
You got to be at everything, and then if God forbid there was a hangout or a sleepover, you had to go to that too, because that's just building your church community. That's just deepening your friendships. Yeah. Friendships that I didn't have. And once I left high school, never really spoke to them ever again. So it
was conditional, basically.
It was completely 100%. So that was my high school life of being rebellious and constantly getting rebuked left and right about my friendships or about I have always had really great friendships with guys. I think most females do, honestly, just like most guys tend to have better relationships with females. I think it's just the way we work. That desiring of, that
we're
energy
human.
Balance. Yeah, it's like, we just, and it's like it's platonic.
Yeah.
But I lost track within my first 2 years of being baptized, how many times I got rebuked of like, oh, you're flirting with this brother, you're leading this guy on, you name it, I have been rebuked for it.
Wow.
I ironically enough hate being touched, but I'll touch a person's arm when I'm talking to them. I will look you in the eye when I'm talking to you. And those were seen as very flirtatious interactions.
Wow.
It's like, oh, you can't do that. He's going to think a certain thing. I'm like, so I'm supposed to look down when I talk to a person. Hey, dude, how's it going? High five it. Hugs were too long. And I'm like, you can't do the front hug. You got to do the side hug.
I rebelled so hard against that because I come from a hugging family. I don't do weak hugs. I hate them. I hate
I joke about, I'm like, I come from an Indian family who's oddly very affectionate, but then I grew up in the inner city with Blacks and Puerto Ricans. All right. We hug, we might kiss cheeks. Okay. And you're telling me I know. And so it's like, but you have to do, and even then the side hugs had to be like quick. I remember this one teen camp down here. It's called the Swamp. up there. We had
right. Oh, I remember that. Oh my goodness. I got it.
And so we had this one thing. Y'all probably had this conversation too of like, don't let your hugs be too long. If you're hugging for like 3 seconds, that's too long because that is enough time for Satan to get in there and start giving you thoughts. And so for like months after that, you would just see like guys and girls going, 1, 2, 3, oh, is that too long? You know, I mean, we made a jope out of it, but you better believe if you were hugging for more than like 2 seconds, you're getting talked to 5 minutes later.
Yeah. Remind me to let's put a pin in that for the purity culture conversation. I got hugs. I got a swamp story to tell you.
Oh, I got stories.
All that stuff.
Oh my goodness. Told you, this is like Alice. I told you, this is like, you know, Alice falling down the hole.
Oh, we're just going all the way down. But yes.
I was gonna say, and don't forget, then it's like a little TARDIS. Okay, there are rooms you don't even know.
It's bigger on the inside.
It's so much bigger on the inside, which is funny. I have my sonic screwdriver over there too.
Wow, nice.
You got to have a TARDIS downstairs. It's great. You gotta have these things.
You know, speaking of big, my eyes keep getting drawn to that plant that's behind you because it looks like it's in not that one. No, to your other side. One? It looks like it's in a big old wine glass. We're gonna tangent. You can totally cut that. So I love plants and I love little things, and so this is like supposed to be a little and of course, like, you know, if you've seen, I'm trying to find the little without the light. You can't do it. But then you have the little like Totoro guy and the little cat in a boot. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So this is my little. I love these things. It makes me happy. I need to surround myself with plants because I'm so crazy otherwise. And it does look like a giant wine glass. I feel like when a doctor says 1 glass of wine a day, that's what they're talking about. That's ours. Yeah. I'm not even a big drinker, but the fact that I see that, I'm like, you know what? I should just start with my guests being like, hey, if you want to bring a drink or something to this, feel free. I'm gonna get my Smirnoff Ice or my Mike's Hard. No, I'm being good with my water, but normally I'm like, have my pinky in the air. Right. Mm-hmm. All right. So let me use the joke about how wine is light. So you're in good company. What keeps us sane after all this church trauma? Right. Was that? It's what keeps us sane after all this church trauma. Mm-hmm. You got to find something to keep it together because you got to do something to keep from crying, right? Exactly. Right. Mm-mm. Or just screaming. One of the two will happen. Right. So let me recap real quick. So your aunt was a disciple. She was trying to recruit you. And you got in because you just like going because it was fun. Gave you something to do every week. You was always interested in God, interested in the Bible, and it was also a safe space from home because abusive older mother who was misdiagnosed. Is that she was properly diagnosed. It's the diagnosis. The name changed. Once everything became a bit more PC. Gotcha. But I mean, to be fair, it's also accurate. Okay, I got you. Because I thought it was one of those cases where, like, where people didn't really have a full understanding of it back then. So now it's something different. But so it was correct. Yeah, it's just a name change. It was big. Okay. And at one point, she had like 30 different personalities up in that piece. She was correctly diagnosed. Okay, I got you. So yes, not very safe household. So this gave you a safe space, gave you just an escape, I guess, right? Yeah. So that, and then the spiritual peer pressure kicks in. Yes. So that, much. And then we get baptized. Yeah. I was a double baptism too. Like I think the same year. You said 2000, I was gonna say, that's right? Later. I am. Yes, I'm definitely a double baptism. Once at 13 and once. Oh Lord, how old was I? It wasn't that long ago. It was a couple years ago, actually. Wait, you say you got baptized twice, you said? I too was it. Yep. So once at 13 and the other one was a few years ago. The crazy thing is, that's not what I meant by double baptism, but it still applies to me because I got baptized at 9 and then at 17. So 17, when I got baptized at 17, that's when that was ICOC. And it was, again, what I thought you meant by double baptism was somebody getting baptized the same day. Oh, that too. Yeah. So it's my spiritual twin. Right. That my spiritual twin, it was a woman. So again, Was it a guy that got baptized?
Yep.
With you? Did he get baptized after you or before you?
He was before me.
That's weird because, like, for me, she went first. So technically, and I tell the story because of the fact that it was a harvest month. So they had a goal of baptizing, like, I think 21 people in the month of October. And I was number 2. And I jokingly say,
I remember those.
I jokingly say that the only reason I wasn't number 1 was because the sister got baptized the same day. So of course they're going to let her go first, but apparently they didn't let you go first.
No, it's because it was in water. And although I had a swimsuit on and then a t-shirt and shorts underneath, they wanted to make sure there were as few guys there as possible. So the boy got baptized first, and then most of the guys left, and then I got baptized.
That's another pin to put in for the purity culture too.
I got a lot for you, man. I got a lot.
Have you seen the video? I think Kev on stage did a video about this, but a girl is getting baptized. She had to be like late teen, early 20s, and she gets out of the water, and she gets like this.
Praise God, I'm a shooting. That's on God. I ain't playing by my Lord and Savior. I'm on my.
I'll send you the video later, but she just kind of does this along her little curves and everything.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And like as somebody who is out of the funk now, I don't see a problem with it, but I laugh because that wouldn't fly where we were at. Mm-mm.
Oh Lord, no.
You got to go back in. You got to go do a few more studies, come back and do it again. And don't let one inch of you be out the water. Don't let your big toe come out the water. You got to get rebaptized.
I saw someone that happened to someone one time. We were at teen camp. They had a baptism because you always had to end the week with at least one baptism.
Right.
And someone's like butt came out. They're like, nah, you weren't completely submerged.
Invalid.
They had someone hold the legs to make sure. I was like, man.
We got to make sure you make it to heaven. You're going to hell otherwise. Gotta keep that foot down.
It was the funniest thing. I was like, really? Okay. But so when you're in it, you're like, that makes sense.
Right.
It says submersion. That was not submerged.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. All right, so you're in it. So you have been in it since 2000. I think you got July. I think about 3 months before me. I think because that was my freshman year of college, actually. Mm-hmm. That October. So we were in at least we started around the same time. Yeah. So your desire for God, your family, the peer pressure, and being a safe harbor from at home got you there. What would you say kept you there for as long as so fast forwarding a little bit, when did you leave for good?
So I which time? I left and then I came back.
You left and came back.
I did. So I left the first time in February 2011.
2011. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So that was the first time I left. And so I would say what kept me there for so long is after a while, it becomes all you know. And it becomes the only place that you have your friendships. And so leaving almost equates to leaving your life behind.
Yeah.
Because it does become so between, church on Sundays, family groups, your ministry get-togethers, midweek on Wednesdays. You're almost half of your week is at church.
Right.
And then the only people you talk to really outside of it, unless you happen to have a job and people at your job, all you know are disciples. And so you kind of know, and especially if you've been around for a long time, you know that if you leave, most of those people will cut you out.
Yeah.
And so you fight to stay and to kind of push things in and push it down because you don't want to leave everything. Exactly. Because then you're starting all over. And you're like, eh. And the idea of doing that, especially when you're like your 20s, is terrifying because how do you start over? Especially when that's been most of your life.
It's so funny that you say that because as I've been listening to other people's channels and the other interviews where people are telling their stories, that's a running theme. Like your whole life is at the church. You don't know anything else, especially when it comes to, and I think this is the case for not just ICOC, like anybody who's, been like the church secretary for all their life. They've been, on staff at church for all their life. That's all they know. If they leave, what do they have?
Yeah.
They haven't. If they went to school, they're so far removed from their degree. It's like, do I get an entry level job at this degree at 30, 35, 40, 45 years old?
Yeah.
Or when I'm getting ahead of things, like when the Creek letter hit and things started falling apart, like I know a lot of the branches of the church wanted to keep things together because they're like, we got to protect the people who have been here on staff the whole time, because they don't have, excuse my French, they don't have shit else to go to. They don't have anything. Yeah, their life will fall apart. So not just, that's bad enough leaving your family, leaving your whole life, because one, you've cut off your family because you've been told that, if your family's not disciples, they go into hell and they'll drag you with them if you hang out with them. You left your friends behind, which, to some degree that might be still good, because, even if you're not in a cult, you might want to leave certain friends behind if you're trying to change your life. So I'm not going to say that's a completely bad thing, but you left your family, you left your friends. So all your new friends, all your new family, you risk leaving that behind, and you might not have career or financial stability. So it's like,
and also a place to live, because when I left, I had just, I had lived here about a year, and I was living with a disciple. And so when I let her know that I was thinking of leaving, I had to find a new place to live. Because she was not comfortable with the idea of someone who was not a disciple, a whatever disciple, living with her. So then you also, if you live in disciples, with so many of us do, because we're taught living on your own isn't great, because if you happen to have mixed company, that can be bad past certain times of the, of the night.
Or you're selfish if you want to live on your own.
Exactly. And so you kind of are forced as well to live with other disciples. And so when you choose to leave, then you're like, well, dang it, now I got to find a new place to live, because I will not be allowed, in a sense, to live with this person anymore.
Yeah. And the whole control thing is starting to become so much more clear to me, because I've heard stories of people who were deterred from pursuing particular careers, or, getting, or you're not college material, you're not you're not university material. So don't even bother going this way, which that keeps you from, that limits your earning ability, that limits, where you can get jobs at. So it's like they make you dependent on here. Now, of course, they're still going to go after the sharp people who already got that stuff, because they need to make it attractive to everybody else.
Yeah.
So
there's also you can't go to this college because there's no campus ministry.
There's no campus ministry. There's no church there.
Yep. And so then you're, so many of your options are limited. Oh, you can't take this job here because there's not a strong church. And so everything boils down to church, ministry.
Unless you're already in the NFL, in which case they want your money, so they're not going to.
I was going to say, or Hollywood. Did you ever see those positive choice videos with that guy that was in Clueless?
No, was it which guy from Clueless? Was it
the guy best friend? There was the guy that was dating Dion who ended up being on Scrubs.
Donald Faison, I think.
Yeah, the guy who played that guy's best friend.
Yeah. His best friend. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. The guy who played his best friend in Clueless. Yeah. So he ended up being a disciple, and so you got to get those actors too.
Indeed, all the sharp people. That reminds me. That's another video for later. I got to do a video about sharp. That foolishness. So you stayed, one, because your life is here. You don't want to. But what made you want to leave in the first place there? Because that kept you there. But there's got to be something that made you want to leave.
Oh, buddy, that's a story. That's a story and a half.
Bring it. Bring it.
So I had moved to well, luckily, I think at this point, anyone who has been in the ICOC already knows my dirt anyway, because it's small and stuff spreads. So and that's another conversation too, you and I gonna have on this piece. So I actually had moved. I wanted to move down to Georgia anyway, which is where I currently live, and I ended up dating this guy,
Mm-hmm.
and it was great, lovely, blah blah blah. And during the time while we were dating, I ended up opening up about some very unsavory things in a previous relationship that I had in the church. And so, so when I shared that with, the women's ministry leader at the time and a few other sisters, and from that, they were like, oh, you totally have to break up with this guy. He was getting ready to start, he had to go to California for work anyways. And they were like, you need to break up with him so you can focus on like healing this and repenting and all this other stuff. And
hold on, let me make sure I'm understanding this properly. So you shared stuff about a previous relationship. So they wanted you to break up with your current then boyfriend because of what you shared about the previous relationship.
Yes. So to be super blunt honest, because I've shared about it a bit on Facebook before. I talk about it out here. Which you actually know that boyfriend. That's how I met you.
Yeah, I think the previous one or the current one.
I met you because of the previous one. But that was the first right. boyfriend.
Because I do remember, I think I met both of y'all at a movie night one night. I think y'all.
Yeah, I think you've met the one at the one at that time. The current.
Yeah. He was like a drummer.
No, that was the first boyfriend. Yeah. Okay. So yes, he was.
Gotcha.
And so so for that one, the short of the long was we engaged in sexual activities.
Okay.
During our time together, and
shit happens.
It does. And I mean, how honest can I be?
Be as real as you are comfortable being.
Okay. Well, I mean, to be fair, I can be very open and honest. I've learned it makes other people uncomfortable. So that's what I'm like.
Hey, we talk about uncomfortable things right now. Okay. We both were.
It's sassy at worst.
We both used to be in a cult. So I mean, that's about as uncomfortable as you can get.
Oh, I'm about to make it worse.
We already here, so. Let's get in that. Okay, let me not say that.
Let's make it darker. Which I'm about to do. Okay, so I shared, which is, I guess, why they wanted me to break up this particular guy. So I shared that not only had that happened, but there had also been, during my relationship with him, I had an abortion, 2 miscarriages, he physically abused me, and he raped me.
Wow.
And so I shared all that. And which is where we can talk about some purity stuff because of this, which is another little pin we can unfortunately make, because it became, so the reason I was told to break up with this guy was because he was on a path towards leadership. He was the son of leaders. And when I shared all that, it was but what did you do to, because the guy had dated as well. His parents were part of Hope Worldwide. They were like friends in leadership, that helped with the sound ministry. And so it became, well, you had to do something for him to do those things. We don't want you to bring that into this current relationship and make him struggle spiritually like you did your last boyfriend. So that's why I was told, and then he was never fully told why we had to break up. He was just told, like, she's going through some stuff and you need to break up. So we broke up. And so that happened June, like end of June in 2010.
Okay.
A few months after I moved here. And so we broke up, and I was told I had to deal with it, which is totally fine. So I started going to therapy. After I started going, I was actually seeing a therapist as a disciple. Still super adore this man. By the way, great therapist. So he was helping me deal with it. And those are really hard things to deal with, by the way. Like there is no, like it's been 2010. So it's been over 10 years since I started talking about these issues, and I'm still dealing with it today. Like it's been 12 years. You don't, and it sticks with you.
You never completely get rid of it.
Never,
I could imagine.
No, never. And so, it's a lot to deal with. It's a lot to to unpack, and it's a lot to process, and it's a lot to overcome. And so I'm doing that. Unfortunately, I wasn't doing it in the time frame that leadership was comfortable with. And so there was this pressure of, well, you should be dealing with it this way. You should be overcoming it in this time frame. You should be having this kind of a mentality during your time. But then I also have really great friendships with brothers still. And well, you shouldn't be having friendships with these guys because you're struggling. You're not in a good place spiritually. We as a church leadership don't want you bringing these guys down. So you need to stop having these friendships, stop being so friendly, stop being this way. And so it was very limiting of like, of how I could interact with other people, but then also the way that I was being perceived. Like, how is this my fault, by the way? Like, I didn't go up to my ex-boyfriend being like, hey, I want you to do these things to me and cause me, years of trauma.
Right. There's nothing that could ever... You can't ever cause that. That's not a thing. It's a thing, but it's not a thing. Yeah,
but it became, I was the villain in this scenario. And so
they just stamped Jezebel on your forehead, basically.
Jezebel would have been better than me at that point. I had the scar. I was the Scarlet Letter. Like, I was that book. Ooh. And so I just, after months and months of being, constantly told, being criticized in my friendships, being criticized, and I'm not being open enough with my discipler. I'm not doing this enough. I'm not doing that enough. I was done. I was sick and tired of it. Like, this is my stuff. This is my shit. Like, you don't get to tell me how to deal with my stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
To this day, I'm like that. Like, you don't get to tell me. You don't get to tell me.
Not at all.
He had actually ended up, my thing, that very first boyfriend, he ends up actually leaving the church because a letter was written. You remember those? A letter was written, and it was shared in the Philadelphia church, and it was shared in the Pittsburgh church, because that's where he was at the time.
Are we talking about that letter, or are we talking about
No. When people are getting disfellowshipped, it's the disfellowship letter.
Okay.
He was getting disfellowshipped. And so I had actually been informed that if I did not do things according to their time frame and their viewpoint, I was going to get disfellowshipped as well. And so I was like, I'm sorry, you're telling me what now? And I think, because pretty much at that point, most of my spiritual walk had been, okay, if you're telling me, if leadership is telling me this is what I need to do, I'm going to do it. I don't care how I feel. I don't care whatever, I will do it if this is what I need to do to kind of stay in the good graces of. Yeah. But that was my breaking point, was telling me I'm wrong, telling me this is my fault, putting these guys on these pedestals just because of who they are. Right. And then telling me I'm going to be disfellowship because I'm not doing it the way that you want. Like, first of all, homeboy number one, he just straight up left because he was like, oh, you're going to disfellowship me? I don't care. Like, no regret, nothing. Yeah. The boyfriend I had just broken up with, moved to California, was doing his own thing, not necessarily spiritually, but he was doing his own thing, but he was still a golden child. Right. But I'm the one in the wrong here because of, no. And now you're threatening me with this fellowship. Like, that was my breaking point of like, no. Like, if you're going to make me out to be the bad guy, it's kind of like the Joker. Well, let me be the bad guy,
Right. Like, let me just lean into
Harley
this.
Quinn this. Right. I'm a commit. So I left. I was done. I was living with a disciple, and almost every single time I got home, she was asking me, well, how is this going? How are you doing with this? How are you doing that? And I felt like I had no safe space. Wow. To just really deal with it. And one of the few people that I could actually talk to about it and just be real with, unfortunately, was a guy. And so, because he was not judgmental. Right. So I left. And I remember even when I first started telling people I'm thinking of leaving for XYZ reason, it was still, how could you do this to me? We're going to have such a hard time having a relationship if you're not in a relationship with God. I was like, this has nothing to do with God, though. Like, I'm not leaving him. I'm leaving this.
Yeah.
You know, and that was another thing too of they made it so like non-interchangeable. Like it was so interchangeable, you know, like you can't have a relationship with God if you're not a part of the ICOC. And I was like, I had one with him before I met ICOC when I was with my Hindu family. Like, this can keep going without you. So I left.
Wow.
I was like, I'm done.
You used to remind me of something that I believe I've said before. And now that I'm thinking of this thing that I said, I'm like, like you've cringed at things you've said and done before in the past, right?
Gosh,
so
yeah, so much.
I don't know. I don't think I came up with this phrase, but I remember repeating it. Like when people say they need to step away from the church to take a break and find themselves, get more spiritual, find God or whatever. Mm-hmm. So we say something to the effect of, how you gonna get more spiritual by leaving the church? Mm-hmm. Which makes sense at the time when you're in it, when you're deep in it, it makes sense. But in hindsight, it's like, did I really say that shit? Like,
it makes me grateful. I've never said that in all the years. All the people I've seen leave, I've never been like, how are you gonna have a relationship with God? I'm just like, you better not forget about me just because I'm still here and you're not. Right. Which I mean, mind you, the days before cell phones and Facebook, good luck. That never happens because we were limited in our communication capabilities. But oh God, yeah, so much, yeah. Oh, we all
those days.
That sound.
Yeah, and don't let.
I'm trying to email.
Or you ever been online and then all of a sudden you hear goodbye because your mama forgot that you was online and she picked up the phone and she put it right back down because she remembered, oh, he's online, but damage done. Now you gotta go
through the 10-step process.
Whole 30-minute process of waiting for it to finish disconnecting and then reconnecting again.
Reconnect. Yep.
But yeah, I know I'm not the one who did it, but I'm sorry, because all of that shit is just the fact that it happened to you. Mm-hmm. And again, if anybody out there disagrees, you can go kick a landmine. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I'm not sorry.
You can fight me.
Yes. There is nothing you can do.
She will fight for me.
Male, female, anywhere in between. No. There's nothing you can do to have somebody abuse you and rape you. Like, I don't want to hear, well, what did you do? Now, there is no. So that, and then the fact that they don't want you, because it happened to you, being a stain on this other person's reputation, because he's being groomed to fast track for leadership because he's such and such a son. Yeah. That was a breaking point. That's what made you deuces, I'm out.
Yeah. Yes, completely.
All good and valid reasons. Not that you need somebody to validate your reasons, but I'm saying I agree because that's. I agree. Yeah. Whew. And then the whole, well, you can't be hanging with the brothers because you're gonna corrupt them too. Just so much. I'm gonna stop because I will. This is about you and not me. Let's just.
I get it. You kind of like. Don't worry. Same thing happens to David, my husband. He's like, he'll just get on this thing, and I'm like, bro, you weren't even a part of the ICOC. He's like, I don't care. He's like, I will vindicate you. I'm like, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. And I appreciate it. That was sweet.
No problem. Future plug for a future video, y'all. Trisha, something you reminded me of, like the fact that you were not going according to their timetable. You weren't going fast enough for them. You weren't dealing with your stuff as fast as they felt you should. The church, ICOC, yes. I want to say, but also church in general, does a shitty job of dealing with any kind of mental health, trauma, processing anything. There is the video I'm going to do it very soon is about how forgiveness is weaponized in church in general, but specifically ICOC. There is more pressure on the wronged person to forgive than there is on now there is pressure to repent. Don't get me wrong, because there's a lot of emphasis on repenting going on. I'll give them a little bit of credit on that, but there's more pressure on you to forgive than there is on the offender to actually repent. If you ain't forget fast, if you didn't forgive fast enough, there's an issue. And if you believe in the Bible, yes, God does call us to forgive the way that he forgives us. However, the Bible doesn't say anything about processing what happened, dealing with it, you know, whether or not you're going to trust a person afterwards, even after you forgive them. Like, they don't want to hear none of that. You got to forgive quickly and go back to being buddy-buddy, that is not how things work. So to that point,
I got some stories about depression and how the church handled that for you too.
Yeah.
So warning, we can have some talks.
Let's do it. All right. So you left. How long did you stay away?
I left about February 2011, and I ended up coming back almost 2 years later, February 2013. And that was after my daughter was born, shortly after my daughter was born.
Okay.
So whilst I was out of the church, I ended up having this epic human, greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my life.
So cute.
I love her. Be careful what you pray for. While I was pregnant with her, I was like, God, let her be 100% psychopath, completely my child. And he laughed and said, okay. And I was like, I forgot him like this, but except I have self-control and she's a kid, so she doesn't.
Right.
But no, she's amazing. I just, seriously, greatest gift of my life. And so, so I gave birth to her, and I knew I wanted her to be raised in a spiritual environment. And I didn't know like where that should be, what was gonna, I wasn't sure. And so there's this one weekend, it's Valentine's Day weekend. And I ended up, there's a couple in the church that kind of became like my bonus parents. They're still my parents to this day, walked me down the aisle and everything. I love them to death. Still kept in contact with them. They still kept in contact with me, even during all that craziness.
Good.
And so we ended up doing a photo shoot for, as like a little Valentine's Day photo shoot with my little baby. And the photographer was, or is, I believe she still is, a disciple. And it ends up being this weekend of just disciples. And it ended up, of course, just being all the ones that I connect with in some way. I went to, that happened. And then that same, I think like that night or the night after, I ended up going to Nanina Riker. It's one of her like cafe performances things. So I saw her, saw her dad. And I was like, and all these other like disciples that I had known over the years. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the direction God is facing me in, because I've been praying like, okay, God, help me find a spiritual home for, honestly, it's more for someday. Like, it was a little bit for me, but it was mostly for my daughter.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, maybe this is it. So I was like, all right, let me go back to church. Let me try it out. And so I went, and it felt like a slightly different vibe. Not as pressury. People were very excited, of course, for me to come back. The disciples that I had kept in contact with while I was gone were, of course, excited about me being back. And part of that too is because we just saw each other more.
Right.
Because it's like, it's every Sunday. So I started going back for her. And then after a while, I started going back for myself, because it was just nice kind of having a spiritual home again.
Yeah.
Like, that's just something God has put in me. I like having a spiritual home, people I can connect with spiritually. And so after a year or so of going, I decided I wanted to start studying the Bible again. So I wanted to do it for me this time. And I think that part of that was my own thing as well. Like, I did all this stuff for other people before. And so I wanted to, for once, do something spiritually for myself.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm going to study the Bible. So I started studying the Bible with a person. It didn't really work out as well. And it was just really time. Our schedule was just totally different. So I started studying with someone different, and it just worked out really well. She was once a single mom as well.
Okay.
Once upon a time. So there were a lot of those struggles and those concepts that she really understood of what it was to be a single mom to a baby, to a toddler, to a young child. So that was really great. So I decided, you know what, so we got near the end of the studies, and I was like, I want to get baptized again, but this time I wanted it to be for me. But of course that came with strings. It's like Pinocchio. There were strings attached. All right. We're trying to sing, I got no strings to hold me down when being tied by them. Before I could get baptized, there were certain people that I had hurt when I was first when I was first in, I was at the North Orleans time when I was first there and when I left. And so whether it was my deceitfulness at that time is what hurt them. So I needed to seek their forgiveness.
Wow.
Before I could get baptized. So I had to do that. So I had those calls and it was really like awkward because at the same time, you're kind of like, how did I hurt you?
I didn't know I hurt you.
We weren't even that close. Like, how did I? But okay, fine. Sure, we'll have to talk.
So these people that you were not even that close to, who say that they hurt you, they're determining whether or not you can make it into heaven.
Yes. So I had to apologize to them. And then I had to talk to the person in leadership who was kind of overseeing my baptism, if you will.
Wow.
That's a thing. You can't just get baptized, We talked
about
in the Bible. Right. Talking about in the Bible, the guy was like, well, hey, there's water right there. Why don't I get baptized? And then he got baptized. Like, that's not a real thing, guys. We say it is, but it's not.
Even though it's in the Bible, like right there. No, you got to go through us.
You can't just get baptized and then we got to approve it first. We got to understand, so that was finally approved. And then I was like, okay, so I'll get baptized tomorrow. And I was real excited. It's like, yes, I'm going to get baptized. And they're like, it's going to be in front of the church. And I was like, now, mind you, I'm an introvert. I don't like being in front of people, which is ironic considering my job and all the things of leadership I had while I was in church, by the way, doesn't
Same here. I think we're introverts who play extroverts on TV. That's pretty much what we
do a good job at it too. People don't realize it's like, you're not introverted. Yes, I am.
Like, yeah, I am.
I really am. It's like, I'll do it, but then I'm just going to avoid the humans for 3 days because you exhausted me so much.
Yes, you drained my battery immediately. Because you can't be an introvert in the church. It's a sin to be an introvert.
Oh Lord, no. Oh gosh.
That's another video too. Like, oof.
You don't get to.
Be out of yourself.
But I don't want to. It doesn't matter. Even Jesus was out of himself. It's like, yeah, but he also avoided people. And I was like, why did you find me?
He went to the desert for 40 days. I don't know how many days. I'm paraphrasing that really bad.
But no, even there are times in the Bible, his disciples like, where'd Jesus at? It's like, not even they could keep track of him, all right? And there was, no.
The man got on a boat and left y'all to get away. If that's not an introvert move, I don't know what is.
There is nothing, like, seriously. All right. But also, there's no bigger church move than people hunting to find him and him being like, fine, and walking on water to come back to them. Like, that's church move right there.
Yes.
Sure. Guess I'll come back. But yeah, because then, so I, and so it's in front of the church, because it was also seen as, the son who came back, the prodigal child.
Yeah.
And please believe that scripture was read at my baptism too. I was like, but I was like, whatever. If this is what it takes, part of it too was like to shut them up.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna do it because I still I wanted it to be about me. It's not about me, but at least that moment in baptism could be about me.
Mm-hmm.
Even with it being in front of the entire church and people being around me, around the tub, and it's fine. It can be about me. And so I was like, that's it. I'm gonna go in. I'll do it. So I did all the things. I got baptized. Although, fun tangent about the purity culture thing too is also wore makeup when I got baptized, and I got talked to about that as well. Who are you trying to impress on your baptism? Me.
I want to look good in my baptism pictures, dang it.
First of all, and I really do. Like, you see me coming out of water, I was like, that's good. I still have that picture. Once it's my baptism too, I was good. Like, flawless.
I look good.
All right.
Yes.
I came up with the spirit in all kinds of ways. It was great. God made sure not a fleck was out of place. That's it. The Holy Spirit moved on that one, and it was great.
There you go.
But yeah, so got baptized, did the whole thing. Was in the Edge ministry, so I balanced out Edge ministry and then the young families because I was a young family.
Yeah.
but there wasn't really a place, although there were a couple other single moms, but then I was also working full time, and I wasn't living with other disciples. I was living by myself. So trying to build relationships was near impossible. The entire time that I was still there. Like, I'm trying to plan play dates for my daughter because she wants to do play dates, and I'm trying to plan play dates, but no one's got time because, they only have time during the weekday, and on weekends, well, it's their husband time. So it's like family time, and, and it was always just this weird thing because, there was no way I could really build like relationships either with some of the people I had relationships with before, which I always feel like there was something else there, or with new people, because there was always something, and since I'm a working full-time, living on my own single mom, there's just really no place for you. Yeah. Within the church for that. You've got your edge ministry, your singles ministry, you've got your young families, but you're not really a part of either one. But then you're getting talked to because you have to be a part of a ministry because you need to be a part of a ministry, but you can't be a part of two ministries because then you can't fully commit yourself to a ministry. And you're like, but
you just can't win.
So then I started joining family groups, which was actually really great. A friend of mine invited me to her family group, and it was awesome. I did love that family group, but then after a while, it just wasn't working with my schedule anymore. And then I found another family group that was closer to me, and I was like, well, this is really, really great. But then, and I'll say before I do that, but during that time, I may have come back to church, but I wasn't necessarily the best disciple. Like, I was there on Sundays. I was there on midweeks. I would try to go to the edge events if it worked for the time, because I had a child. Right. I would try to do the young families things if it worked because I had a job. Yeah. Not everything works out. So I try to do these different events. I was trying to hang out with disciples. I'm trying to do my family group things. But there was like a little part of me that not everyone knew. And that is, I am very particular in the way I connect with God and, the way I relate to him. I shared with you before, I today, went to get a reading from a psychic because my husband and I, I know, because my husband and I, oh my gosh, are part of psychic development classes. Separate ones. He's going to the one at our church. I'm going to one that's done by a friend of ours who's actually a high priestess, and she's fabulous, and I love her to death. Yeah. But there was like that aspect of me of, I'm saging at home. I've got, crystals along my, my windowsills. I'm wearing crystals at church.
There's scriptures for those. There's a scripture for that. We do
special prayers during the moon cycles. Those were the things that I was naturally drawn to. I believe in like grounding and all these other little aspects. And you want to try being a disciple in ICOC church doing that? You're like living your life like, oh my gosh, it's like the Salem witch trials all over again, where you're just like, man, I'm just waiting for someone to point at me going, she's a witch. And the following will still happen. You may not get a physical burning, but you will still get burned. Yeah. And so I'm spending years as well doing all this stuff, but then also looking at my daughter like, don't write me out. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, if you do, because I'm like, what's someone going to do? Tell me I'm wrong. Right. So now we're getting close to why I left the second time. The second time around. And obviously there is no going back for me, because the second time was like,
that's it.
I'm done. That's it. I'm done with you guys. And so I already have all this going on. I'm a little witchy. And I love it. I have my little metaphysical side. But then there's also that I grew up with a Hindu family, and I do have that aspect of my spiritual walk as well, where, we would celebrate Diwali. We would go to a Hindu temple for Diwali. We would do that same thing for Holi. So like, I'm also taking her to Hindu temples behind everybody's back to celebrate these things, because it's not only a part of my culture, which I think people need to start doing that as well. Yeah. Sometimes your culture does affect your spirituality, and that's not bad. Sometimes
not
it's
at all.
Great, actually, I think. And so, I'm already I'm doing all this and I'm, people are going to find out, and yeah. And so I'm already like, again, contemplating like, is this where we're meant to stay? Like, this is what I needed to get her on a spiritual path, because, we talk about stuff after, how was kids class? Okay, cool. Now we're going to diverge from a little bit of this, and I'm going to give you my own spiritual input. So you're not like so gung-ho in the ICOC side, because that was my concern as well. Like, I wanted her to have a spiritual foundation without developing that, that church religious mindset that breaks from spirituality.
Right.
And so, so we're doing all these fabulous, fantastic things. And I'm already debating, like, is this really where I want us to stay? Is this where I want us to go? Yeah. And then enter the ex-boyfriend that I had to break up with. He becomes a part of this story. And so, he was up in California and doing all these other things and blah, blah, blah. And then he moved, or was coming back to Atlanta. And so we had kind of maintained sort of a friendship, and I'm calling him out. And he just happens to be a part of my story. I'm sorry. And so, so we continue our friendship while he's here. And, during our friendship, it like we get a little bit more than just friends, we're talking.
Right. Right.
And, and I mean, it's not like a huge commonology thing, but you can tell like there's something going on between us. And so then I start getting talked to about it. Of like, hey, even where like people are like, the certain person in leadership again. She and I are we're together again, reunited, and it feels so men.
I was going there too.
I know, you have to do it. And so, it's the same sister, same woman who, was telling me I wasn't, going fast enough. And in my repentance and in my changing, the one who was like, you need to talk to these people and apologize first before you get baptized, who had the idea about me, prodigal child, so same person. And, so she is like trying to talk to me at church about this friendship situation thing that we've got going on, and so I start having my breaking point, because then she messages me on there. She's like, hey, I want to come over, we need to talk. I'm like, okay. And she's like, I'm like, all right, well, I need to put my daughter to bed. She's got, she's in, I think she's in pre-K at the time. She's at pre-K. Okay. So I'm like, she's got school the next day. I've got work, And she's like, that's fine. I'll come. We'll come over after she goes to bed. I'm like, we. Right.
That's what I was like. We, who's we?
You notice the we, because you know how that works. It's never just a one-on-one. It's like a few people. And so she comes over and she's like, so about your relationship with this guy. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, well, he's been coming back and it's great, but he's not like really spiritually strong yet. And so we just, she's like, I just want to make sure, like, it just seems like things are getting a little bit too close and a little bit too personal. And she's like, I want you to, I just want you to know, like, he's just like, he's getting in there with the brothers and he's working it out. And I'm just worried that you're becoming a distraction to him. And I just really want you to back off.
So wait, it's not that, since he's not back yet, it's not that he's going to pull you down. It's that you're going to be a distraction.
I'm going to subtract it. Yeah. And I'm going to just pull it apart for him. And I was like, okay. So the first time, we had to break up because, of my past stuff, and it's going to bring him down. And like, I'm like, when does he start getting to accept some accountability and responsibility for his own spiritual life? No, never. It's mine. Okay. So this is happening, and I'm like, and I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm, but and I'm like, okay, but what about him? They're like, oh, well, the brothers are dealing with him. And I was like, but then why are you talking to me? Because I'm doing my own thing. Like, if you're like, he needs to back off. Okay, cool. Like, I'm not after him, by the way. Like, I'm not like every day, hey, what's up, boo? Like, I'm not doing this. Like, there's more on his end than mine at that time. And so I was like, all right, whatever. Then like a week later, my aunt, the disciple, is coming down to visit, another aunt that happens to live here. And she and woman in leadership happen to be close. And so she ends up having a meeting with her while she's down here. And so while I'm driving her back to the airport, she's like, hey, so I talked to this sister, and so I heard this is what's going on. And so we spend the entire ride from the airport, from like, you know, Marietta to the Atlanta airport.
Having the same conversation again.
Having the same conversation again. It's like, oh, we're just worried that you're not really listening and respecting his wishes. I'm like, then can you tell him this? And so that's already like another little thing for me of like, I'm already struggling with being here because I feel like I can't express myself spiritually without being rebuked and getting that one thing in witchcraft, you know, getting that scripture thrown at me, which I mean, I'm not sacrificing goats or anything. And that's probably what's happening when the scripture was written. So like,
there you go.
No
context, people, context.
Can't we just talk about context? We need to start working on that. So you know, I drop her off and I'm like, okay, you know, and so I'm just like, you know, and I still had feelings for this guy, right? That never got resolved. I never got that over with. And so after that, I'm just like, all right, God, why did you bring this into my life? What is going on? Like, help me get over this, but help whatever you want to happen. And a couple of weeks later, like it ended up fizzling out anyway. God Thanos all of my feelings for him. It was fantastic. Man, it wasn't even half. Like he just straight, the entire situation was dead. So I was like, all right, cool.
Wow. And
so I was like, all right. And so that happened. And at this point, I'm like, this is not where I need to be. Like whether it's spiritually or just like physically. Also, I was planning on moving to another country. So I started prepping. I started working on that. I was like, all right, I'm tired of minimizing myself. I'm tired of going after people and guys that I'm not even 100% attracted to, but because I'm, you know, society and everything's told me this is what I should be going after. Like, I'm done. You know, I was like, we'll just be like more girls, and I will find my guy some like, you know, angry, bitter coffee shop owner by the time, you know, my child is in college. Like, it'll be fine. I can wait like 20 years. I don't care. So I'm ready to go. And this is 2018. And of course, as you can imagine, those who are like my maid family here was like, no, you don't need to go. And so one of my unofficial brothers was actually over at my house and, you know, post dinner, because I used to feed him like every week. And he was like, there's got to be like something to keep you here. And I was like, what?
Where?
I was like, I really want to be in this church. Like, what is this? What's keeping me here?
Like the girl in that meme.
Like, he's like, so maybe there's like something. That it wasn't me. So he's like, maybe there's like, I don't know, like, because, you know, I'm naturally more attracted to Asian men. So sorry to everyone else out there. And so I'm like, maybe there's like a dating site just for Asians. And I was like, it doesn't exist. And, you know, I firmly believe our phones hear us, because then for like 2 weeks straight, I kept getting this like thing for this Asian dating site, by the way, called East Meet East. And I was like,
wow.
My phone knows, they hear everything. That's it. I firmly believe that now. I believe that conspiracy.
Yeah.
And so I finally joined. And it's just like any dating site. You're like, eh. And so I'm on it for a bit, for about like a month or two. I spend a month not really going on it. In January, I'm like, I try it again. I'm like, oh, this is horrible. Like all the guys are, they're tools. It's mostly fuckboys and guys with weird Asian fetishes. It was just a really weird situation.
Yeah.
And so I'm ready to go. So I log on just because I'm ready to just quit, delete my profile. And I see this really hot guy. And I'm like, who this is? And then I see his thing. I look at his bio because I do read those. So heads up for anyone who wants to make a dating thing. Most of us read them. I read it. Yeah. And he was a single, you know, he was a divorced dad with 3 kids. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm a single mom. I get this. And he described himself as Christian. It wasn't Christian metaphysical. It was like Christian and like, you know, the fun spirituality. And I was like, well, I'm intrigued.
All right.
So I messaged him and I was like, hey, you said you're this, like, what exactly do you mean? And we start talking. And, you know, like 2 weeks after talking almost every single day, we meet in person. And from there we talk every single day. And, I was never one, as you can understand, of the whole, like, you must date within the ICOC and marry within the ICOC.
Yeah.
At that point in my life, I swore off all men within the ICOC. I was like, I've done it twice and it sucks. One was a horribly toxic and abusive relationship. And the other one looking back, was a very, in its own way, a toxic relationship. So I'm like, I'm good. I don't see what's so great about these ICOC guys. The ones I know, I love you all. Most of y'all left anyway, so I'm good. Hey, you know what's up. And so I was like, I'm never going to do it. Because I figured, like, if I'm staying in the ICOC and I have to date or marry this kind of a guy, like, I just will be single till I die.
Yeah.
And so I meet this dude and I'm like, wow, I don't really believe this anyway. Let's see where this goes. And I'm like, you know what? He asked me to be his girlfriend, and I was like, happiest day of my life. Well, second happiest day of my life. And so super, super happy, did that. And so he was awesome. He came with me to church, although he was hesitant. And I noticed the way people reacted to the fact that he was not in the ICOC. And then he came with me a second time, which was really, really nice of him because he hated the first time. And then I noticed how people reacted when he and I both said, like, we were still dating. We had actually been talking about marriage because, hi, I'm in my 30s and I'm a single mom. I'm not just going to date for fun. And it's either putting a ring on it or we're done. Yeah, I ain't got none of that. But when we said he wasn't joining the ICOC, and I was like, had spent a few years like, do I want to stay? Yeah. Is this where I want my home to be? And seeing that, I was already like very uneasy. And then he proposed and we started planning our wedding. And I reached out to North River to see if we could have our wedding there. And at the time, there was the building that their team building, they were tearing it down because they were working on trying to tear it down and build a new thing. And I was told that because I was not considering standing with the church because so he again, he wasn't a single parent like I am, where it was just me and my kid and I don't have another human to deal with. Right. He was divorced. He had a parenting plan. He had a really horrendous human being to try to work with. It's still a struggle. Good vibes. We need it all. But yeah, so like, so it wasn't easy. So we're trying to spend time together and we're trying to already start blending our families. And with me being, still a single mom, but then his parenting plan, it was really hard. And then we tried taking them to church once. And the second youngest, she ends up having, because she has a lot of anxiety, especially a lot of social anxiety, because she's never really spent time outside of like home and then like school, and that was it. So she had like a half an hour anxiety attack about even going to church. And then she liked it. But then they went back and their mom was like, church is horrible. You should never go again. And so then they had a lot of anxiety about going again. So we never pushed it. So whenever we were together, we didn't go to church because it wasn't good for them. Right. And we decided family time was more important than trying to maintain some spiritual facade or religious facade, really. Because I wasn't doing midweeks all the time anymore. I wasn't going to church every Sunday. I was no longer going to family group consistently. I was no longer considered in good standing with the church. And then he was not a member of the church. I was told that with those two things combined, my request to be married within the church or just in the church building was denied because of that. And so if he were to become a member and if I were to start consistently going again, then we could get married in the church. And that was my final straw. I was like, so you're telling me because I am marrying someone not in the ICOC, because I am having this crazy life that prevents me from basically spending half of my life in church. You won't even let me use a building to get like your religious belief trumps the union of a family. Because that's what it was. We were creating a new family between really 4 children. And what upset me the most is, my daughter's amazing. My bio daughter's fabulous. I love her. That girl has faith that could not even move a mountain. It can make the sun stand still. So she spent years from the time she was 2. So I got married when she was about 6.5. So she spent almost every single night for over 4 years praying for a dad, siblings, and a giant house to live in with all of her family. Now, our marriage wasn't just us getting married. That wasn't just us getting married. That's not all it was. It was also accumulation of her faith. I'm not going won't cry, but I still think about it. And so it's like, so you're telling me not only because of his lack of church connection and mine at this time that you're not going to let us use the building, but you're letting your religiosity dictate how my daughter is now going to potentially view God? Like, she literally prayed for this. She prayed for this moment. She prayed for this day.
So you're going to block what she's been praying for.
No faith. Yep. Like, I had no faith about getting married. Like, none. She's like, we're going to get married one day, mommy. I was like, yeah, when you're 20, you'll get married first. You'll be the first psychopath to say, I do. It is not going to be me. That little girl had more faith than me about this day. And she was getting everything she prayed for. She was getting a dad. She was getting, you know, I mean, she wanted siblings. She wanted a brother, but, you know, she got 3 sisters. She loves it. You know, and then we lived with my sister-in-law. And at the time, you know, his sister, so it's his sister's house. But then at the time too, his brother was living here. It's a really big house. And it was like 3 families in one house. It's literally what she prayed for. And I'm like, you trying to like Bible block my daughter's faith? I was done. I was like, you can do all this stuff to me. You guys have been doing this to me for like 15, 20 years, but you're not doing this to my kid.
Yeah.
So that's why I left the second time. Because they tried to Bible block my daughter's faith.
Bible block my daughter's faith.
I said, no, we ain't doing that.
They're trying to do another kind of block with you, but they was Bible blocking your daughter.
No. Right? No, we ain't doing this. We ain't doing this. So that was when I left the second time.
Gotcha. So it's been how many years now since then?
It has been 3. We actually just had our 3-year anniversary. And like Sandy and I, like my daughter and I, we go occasionally here and there afterwards, but not really. And it's just because she wanted to go to church. And I'm like, all right, for you, we'll try going.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit, and I was like, now I have an excuse not to go.
There you go.
There you go. COVID.
Yeah. I haven't been I've been to a physical building twice since COVID. One, because Justice was born right like 3 months before COVID. He was born in January, and COVID hit in March. So I went to my wife actually had a preaching gig in Detroit back in April.
You meet her. She sounds like phenomenal.
Yes, she I'm actually wearing her shirt. This is her actually, this is the old logo, the Dignity Effect. I'm repping the Dignity Effect right now. So y'all can see that. Bam. There we go.
I mean, it's very, very appropriate as well for some of our topics of conversation.
Indeed. Yes. So she is super, a lot of whatever little bit of mental healthness I was spitting before, like I owe it to her because like she has opened my eyes up so much to all of that. But yes, we will make this meeting happen at some point. It has to.
Yes, I know. And I keep telling David he needs to meet you. I was like, this is a guy you'll like, I promise.
Oh, yes.
I was like, he's a geek and a nerd. I mean, what more do you want in a friend?
Right. There you go. So let's see. But yeah, so that and I think Mother's Day, we went to my mom's church, the church I was at before ICOC. So I've been in a physical church twice, and we're not really in a rush. I mean, we do want to find one eventually, but like we've gotten so accustomed to having our Sundays to ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to
break that.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I mean, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, so you're 3 years gone.
Yes.
Is your life in shambles? Are you living in sin? I'm being very facetious and sarcastic right now.
To be fair, my life was in shambles and I was living in sin when I was a part of the ICOC. So welcome to that twist.
Right. But yeah, in case y'all can't tell, I went there because we're always told that, you know, if we leave the church, we're not making it to heaven. We're going to hell. Our life is going to be horrible. And our motivation for leaving is because we just want to be in sin. Was any of that the case? Is any of that the case for you?
Selfish and you know, it's Amen. Definitely not. I mean, my life is crazier. Let's be honest. It's crazier. But I'm also an adult, and I'm adulting, so that's what makes it crazy. No, I mean, honestly, I think I definitely am the person like I have, and part of this is honestly going to come from that purity culture conversation we'll have, is I am a lot more self-confident than now since I've left than I ever was. Like I have a lot more I have a lot more love and respect for myself.
Yeah.
Than I did when I was a part of the ICOC. And honestly, leaving is what gave me that.
So would it be safe to say your life got better after you left the last time?
So much. So much.
So much better. So better.
Yes. Would I advise this? Yes, I would.
Yes. I'm so happy for that, for you, for y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate that you had to go through what you went through, but you're here and you're amazing. Your family's amazing. Your life is amazing. What more can you ask for now?
Yeah. Well, and I think that the most important part, which I'm sure you've learned and others who've left the ICOC or other similar situations can attest to, is it's not even that our life is amazing or great. It's our life is our own now.
Yes.
Like, yes. I don't have to answer to a family group leader or a church leader, or even something as basic as like wanting to date my husband. I didn't have to ask permission for that. I didn't have to talk to his discipler and or talk to my discipler and have my discipler talk to his discipler and see if we could connect this up. Like, I didn't have to do any of that.
The damn telephone game.
Yeah. Okay. There was no like whisper down the lane here. Like, it is when we want to make a decision, we make a decision based off of what's best for us and our family, not what's best for the church. And I think that has probably been the best, most freeing part, which is part of the reason I kept getting in trouble too, even when I was there the second time around, because I wasn't making decisions based off of what was going to be best for the church.
Right.
You know, like if I wasn't feeling good, I'm missing midweek because I'm not going to stress myself out. If my daughter's not feeling good, I'm not going to go to midweek or church because I'm not going to stress us out to go. Like, the church was never first. And especially since I've left, it's definitely not been first at all. You know, it's been gotten to be us and our family and our own personal spiritual walk, and not how someone else is trying to dictate what that all of that needs to look like.
Exactly.
So yes, we can all attest to like, my life is my own now, which is ironic because you get told when you're getting baptized, like, your life is your own through Christ. But in reality, when you do that, you kind of sign an unwritten contract of your life almost now belongs to the church.
Yo, that's crazy, because I don't even think I've heard your life is your own through Christ. I think I just straight up got told your life is not your own anymore. Yeah,
I mean, it's, you know, I mean, it's a nice way of saying it. It's like, because it's like your life is no longer your own, it's God's and it's Jesus's, which is, you know, another way of saying, like, your life is your own, but through this being right here.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's really not, like, because if your life was for God or for Jesus, a church wouldn't be dictating where you can go, where you can study, where you can live, what job you can have, who you can date, who you can marry.
Exactly.
There's ain't none of that in the Bible.
No. Nowhere in there. All right. So to wrap up this part of it here, what would you say to anyone? I know that this is like a multi-layered thing, so take it however you need to take it, or go with it wherever you need to take it. For those of people who are watching, they may be people who have not encountered the church. Who have not encountered the ICOC before, who are currently there and are contemplating leaving, currently there and they still drinking the Kool-Aid, ain't thinking about leaving. People who have left, what message or messages would you have to them based off of your experience?
Gosh, so many. It's very multifaceted. It's like Shrek. You have to peel. It's the onions.
It's like an ogre got layers.
Right. We do. I am truly an ogre in the situation. I mean, I feel like, first of all, I would say and you feel as though, whether it's ICOC, any church you're a part of, any group you're a part of, like, if you feel like you cannot be 100% yourself. Yes. Every aspect of who that is. And for me, that was, you know, probably laying out even more who I am as a person. The Indian side, the being raised in a Hindu family, being a single mom, the being attracted to a certain type of people, you know, but part of that too is not even just Asian men, I'm also bi. And so, hey, I'm attracted to, you know, and so, but that aspect of who I am, not forcing my daughter to conform to gender norms. I mean, I've got talked to a lot about, why is your daughter wearing boy clothes? Because she likes superheroes. Like, why is this a boy thing? So she likes the Hulk. What do you want?
There you go.
You know, believing women need to have a voice. I mean, all the facets of who you are. If you cannot be 100% authentic in the spiritual environment that you're in, can you really say it's what's best for you spiritually? Because growing spiritually should not mean holding another part of you back.
Yes.
It's, you know, and so I feel like that's probably my biggest message to anyone and everyone is like, there is no freedom in caging an aspect of yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying if you're like, ooh, I'm going to start like, you know, killing people. Like, I mean, I'm not saying that's like,
right,
oh, yeah, let it free. Like, please, in no way am I saying if you're trying to hurt yourself or others. No, it's if there are parts of you that you feel like you have to ignore or you have to be ashamed of,
right,
because of what a religious institution is telling you, that's probably not where you should be. Because really, no one has the right to tell you who to marry, who to date, how to raise your child, you know, obviously if you're in a positive way, you know,
of course,
how to allow your child to view themselves in a gendered aspect. Like, no one gets to tell you how to view yourself in a gendered aspect. Like, no one gets to, or even the clothes you wear. You know, no one gets to dictate these things for you and then throw them against you in the guise of spiritual growth and development. And so I feel like if you're in a situation like that, it's probably not where you should be.
Yeah.
Because last time I checked, you know, God wasn't like that. And and then we want to say, well, God is like this, God is like that. I mean, there's so many different aspects of God. You know, I mean, God's over here like, so who wants to gank their son today? You know, I mean, just saying, he's saying, take your kid to the mountain. That's the same God. You know, who was also like, so you want more than one wife? Okay, fine, I'll let you do it. You know, I mean, like, there's just so many different aspects of him that to say, pinpoint one thing and say, now we're going to create a whole religious aspect. I mean, you're also kind of denying all those other aspects of God by denying that within ourselves.
Can't cherry pick God. I mean,
exactly.
Do that enough with the Bible. Can't do it with God.
Which is ironic because even Revelations is like, if you add anything or take anything away from this book, I'm just saying.
Just saying.
Revelation said it already.
Yes, indeed. Oof. All right, so Trisha, we are going to pick back up on this juicy topic of purity culture in just a few moments.
I'm so excited to hear your side.
Yes, because it's a lot. I will say hands down, y'all got the short end of the stick, but like, there are men who don't understand how bad it affects us. And because they don't realize how bad it affects us, the cycle keeps going. Mm-hmm. Let me shut up before I spoil things. Everybody at home, thank y'all for tuning in with us. Trisha, thank you for sharing all of your whole story, because there's a lot of heaviness with that. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of people would not want to share with one person, let alone however many subscribers I got or people who's viewing this. So I know that takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of self-confidence. It takes a lot. So thank you for sharing those deep, dark areas of your life with us. I feel privileged to hear that, because again, you can't do that with everybody. So thank you again. Thank you everybody else for watching. Let me know if y'all got any comments for me, for Trisha, if y'all want y'all story heard. If I forget, it's been so long since I've done an interview, I forgot what my normal spiel is. So yeah, I'm gonna rehearse it later. But y'all have a good night, and I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.